Poor girl took the wrong door for a job and was offered a contract marriage with a CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Now, let us go back to our main character. She stands in the lobby of a glass tower that scrapes the sky, her reflection fractured across polished marble floors and chrome pillars. Her name is Emily Carter, and everything about her says she does not belong here. The sleeves of her blazer are slightly frayed. Her heels were bought second-hand and pinch with every step. In her hand, she grips a thin manila folder holding 3 resumes and one last hope. Emily came to this building looking for a job. Any job. Receptionist, assistant, temporary clerical work. Something to keep the lights on for another month. The elevator doors open with a soft chime. She steps inside, presses what she thinks is the correct floor, and exhales slowly, rehearsing answers in her head. Reliable, hard-working, willing to learn. She does not notice the small brass plaque by the buttons that reads, "Executive level only." When the doors slide open again, the air feels different, quieter, colder. The carpet is thicker. The walls are lined with abstract art that probably costs more than her yearly rent. At the far end of the hall stands a single door, dark wood, no nameplate. Emily hesitates, glances back at the elevator, then down at the address scribbled on her notepad. This must be it, she tells herself. She knocks. A voice answers from inside, calm, male, controlled. Come in. Emily steps into an office that feels less like a workplace and more like a command center. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the city below. A massive desk of black stone sits in the center. Behind it stands Daniel Wright, the chief executive officer of Wright Consolidated, one of the most powerful men in the city. He is not smiling. Daniel looks up from the document in his hand and studies her the way investors study risk. Quietly, precisely. Emily's heart stutters. "I am sorry," she says quickly. "I am here for the interview." Daniel raises an eyebrow. "You are early." "I can wait," she blurts out. I can also come back. I might be on the wrong floor." For a moment, he does not answer. He looks at her resume, then at her face. Something unreadable passes through his eyes. "No," he says finally. "You are in the right place." Emily relaxes just enough to breathe. But then Daniel stands, walks around the desk, and says the sentence that changes everything. "I do not need an assistant," he says evenly. "I need a wife." Emily freezes. "A contract wife," he continues, as if discussing a routine business deal. 1 year, clear terms, full compensation. The city hums far below them. Emily's folder slips slightly in her grip. She came here looking for a job. She just walked through the wrong door. And now, she is being offered a marriage she never imagined was possible. Emily does not answer right away. The office feels smaller now, as if the walls have quietly leaned in. The words contract wife echo in her ears, heavy and unreal. For a moment, she wonders if she misunderstood him, if this is some strange test or cruel joke. Daniel Wright watches her closely. He does not rush her. Men like him are used to silence bending in their favor. "I think you should leave," Emily finally says, her voice tight but steady. "I am clearly in the wrong place." She turns toward the door, embarrassed heat crawling up her neck. This was supposed to be an interview, not humiliation dressed in a tailored suit. "Sit down," Daniel says. The command stops her mid-step, not because he raises his voice, but because he does not need to. Emily hesitates, then slowly lowers herself into the chair across from his desk. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers clenched together to keep from shaking. "You did not come here by accident," Daniel says. "You came because you need work." Emily swallows. She does not deny it. He slides her resume back across the desk. It is thin, honest, gaps between jobs. No prestigious companies, no powerful references. "You have been unemployed for 4 months," he continues. "Before that, you worked 2 part-time jobs. Neither paid benefits." Emily nods, her eyes fixed on the paper. "My mother is sick," she says quietly. "It is not life-threatening, but it is expensive. The insurance ended when she was laid off. I help when I can. Daniel listens, expression unreadable. My rent is overdue, Emily adds. 3 weeks. I sold my car last month. I walk or take the bus now. I came here today because the listing said immediate hire. The words spill out faster than she intends, as if once the truth starts, it refuses to stop. I am not looking for anything inappropriate, she says quickly. I just need a job. I will work hard. I always do. Daniel stands and turns toward the window. Below them, traffic crawls like a living thing, endless and indifferent. I am under pressure, he says, not looking at her. My board wants stability. My largest investors want an image they can trust. A family man, a future. Emily frowns. And you think that is me? I think you are invisible, Daniel replies. He turns back to face her. Which makes you perfect. The word stings more than she expects. You would live in a guest wing of my house, he continues. You would attend public events with me. Dinners, galas, corporate functions. You would smile. You would say very little. In return, you would receive a salary that solves your immediate problems. Emily's breath catches. How much? She asks before she can stop herself. Daniel names a number. It is more money than she has ever earned in a year. The room tilts slightly. Emily grips the arms of the chair, grounding herself. This is not real, she whispers. People do not hire wives. They do when everything else has failed, Daniel says. This is a contract, temporary, clean. At the end of the term, we go our separate ways. And if I say no? Emily asks. Daniel pauses. Then you walk out that door and continue looking for work. Emily thinks of her mother's prescription bottles lined up on the kitchen counter, of the landlord's last message sitting unread on her phone, of the bus schedule folded in her pocket. She thinks of how tired she is of choosing between dignity and survival. Daniel places a thin folder on the desk, the contract, tabs marked in neat black ink. You do not have to decide now, he says, but understand this. I am offering you security, not affection, not love. Emily looks at the folder, then she looks at the door, and for the first time in a long while, she realizes how little space exists between desperation and destiny. Emily does not sleep that night. The numbers Daniel mentioned keep replaying in her mind, precise and impossible. She lies on her narrow bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, listening to the radiator knock like it is counting down her options. Outside, a siren passes, then another. Morning comes without answers. By 9 o'clock, she is back in the glass tower. This time, the elevator ride feels longer, quieter. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looks older than it did yesterday. Tired, but decided. Daniel is already waiting when she steps into his office. 2 folders sit on the desk now, identical except for the thin silver pen laid neatly between them. You came, he says. I did, Emily replies. That does not mean I agree. That means you are willing to listen, Daniel says. He gestures to the chair. She sits. He opens the first folder and slides it toward her, stopping it with one finger. The first page reads, in clean legal type, Marital Services Agreement. This is not romance, Daniel says. This is structure. He begins to explain, point by point, his voice steady and uninflected. The term is 12 months, he says. During that time, you will be publicly presented as my wife. You will attend a minimum of 5 events per month. You will not speak to the press without approval. You will not comment on company matters. You will not represent personal opinions as mine. Emily listens, her eyes moving slowly down the page. You will live on the property, he continues. Separate wing, private entrance. Your personal life remains your own. I will not interfere. She looks up. No shared bedroom. No, Daniel says. That boundary is explicit. He turns the page. In return, he says, you receive a monthly payment deposited on the 1st of each month. Full medical coverage begins immediately, including for your mother. A personal attorney will be available to you at my expense. At the end of the term, the marriage dissolves quietly. You receive a severance equal to 6 additional months of pay. Emily's breath catches, sharp and quiet. This is too much, she says, for pretending. For stability, Daniel corrects her. For silence, for reliability. And what do you get? She asks. Daniel pauses, just long enough for the question to matter. I get time, he says, and control. Emily flips another page. There are clauses she does not fully understand, words like indemnification and non-disclosure. She feels small reading them, like she is stepping into water she cannot see the bottom of. What happens if I break the rules? She asks. Then the contract ends, Daniel replies. And so does the protection it provides. Protection. The word settles heavily between them. She thinks of her mother again, of the landlord, of the calendar on her fridge with bills circled in red. And feelings? Emily asks quietly. What if one of us forgets this is not real? Daniel meets her gaze. His expression does not change. That will not happen, he says. Emily nods, though she is not sure she believes him. He slides the pen toward her. You should know, Daniel adds. You are free to walk away, even now. Emily picks up the pen. It feels heavier than it should. She reads the last line twice. Then she signs her name. The sound of the pen scratching across paper is soft, final. Daniel signs beneath her without hesitation. He closes the folder and stands. Then we are agreed, he says. My legal team will finalize everything today. Emily rises slowly, the room feeling unreal again, but different now. Not shocking. Settled. Do not mistake this, she says, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. I am doing this because I have no choice. Daniel looks at her for a moment, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. Most arrangements are born that way, he says. As Emily leaves the office, the signed contract tucked under her arm, she realizes that the job she came looking for no longer exists. She did not get hired. She got bound. Emily moves into the house 3 days later. The driver opens the door of the black sedan, and she steps out onto a curved stone driveway that feels like it belongs to someone else's life. The house is not loud or flashy. It is massive, quiet, and controlled, like the man who owns it. Glass, steel, clean lines. No warmth, no clutter, nothing unnecessary. This is temporary, Emily reminds herself under her breath. Inside, a woman introduces herself as Mrs. Holloway, the estate manager. Her tone is polite, efficient, distant. You will be staying in the East Wing, she says. Your schedule will be coordinated daily. Breakfast is optional, but expected on public days. Public days. Emily nods as if that phrase has always existed in her vocabulary. Her room is larger than her entire apartment. The bed looks untouched. The closet is already full. Dresses, shoes, coats. None of them feel like hers. Later that afternoon, Emily stands in front of a mirror while a stylist adjusts the hem of a navy dress. Another woman pins her hair back gently, murmuring approval. Emily barely recognizes the woman staring back at her. She looks polished, expensive, still afraid. Smile, the stylist says, soft, not shy. Emily tries again. That evening is her first appearance, a small charity dinner. Only 50 people, Daniel says. A warm-up, a test. They arrive together, cameras flashing briefly before security waves them inside. Daniel places his hand lightly at her back, not possessive, not intimate, just precise. Emily feels the heat of it anyway. This is Emily, my wife, he says calmly, over and over. Each time the word lands differently. Some people smile politely. Some look her up and down without hiding it. Others linger too long, curiosity sharp behind practiced manners. At the table, Emily listens more than she speaks. She remembers the rules. Smile, nod, do not volunteer information. Across from her, a woman with a diamond collar necklace tilts her head. So, Emily, she says lightly, what does your family do? Emily feels the moment tighten. She meets the woman's gaze. My mother worked in retail, she says. She raised me by herself. The woman blinks, then recovers. How admirable. Daniel does not intervene. He watches. Later, when a server spills water near the table, Emily stands instinctively to help, grabbing napkins before anyone else moves. The room goes quiet for half a second, then conversation resumes. Daniel notices everything. On the drive home, neither of them speaks at first. You did well, he says finally. I followed the rules, Emily replies. That is what well looks like, he says. Days turn into a rhythm. Morning briefings, etiquette lessons, names to memorize, faces to recognize. Emily learns which fork to use, when to speak, when silence carries more weight. She makes mistakes. She laughs too loudly once. She forgets a name. Each time she corrects herself without complaint. At home, Daniel remains distant, respectful, controlled. They eat together only when required. Otherwise, their paths cross like carefully planned intersections. One evening, Emily finds herself alone in the kitchen long after midnight, making tea she does not need. Daniel enters quietly, sleeves rolled up, tie gone. "You are adapting quickly," he says. "I am paying attention," she replies. He studies her for a moment. "Most people try to impress. I am trying not to embarrass you," Emily says honestly. Something shifts then, small, almost invisible. "You do not," Daniel says. She nods, unsure what to do with that. As he leaves, Emily realizes something unsettling. She is no longer just pretending to belong in his world. She is learning how it works. And Daniel Wright is beginning to notice that she is not just playing a role. She is changing the room simply by standing in it. The invitation arrives on thick ivory paper, embossed with gold lettering and a name that makes Emily's stomach tighten. Wright Consolidated Annual Gala. This is not a small charity dinner. This is the night that decides reputations. Daniel reads the card once, then places it on the kitchen counter between them. "Tonight will be different," he says. "There will be press, board members, people who do not forget mistakes." Emily nods. She already knows what this means. By the time the car pulls up to the hotel ballroom, the sidewalk is lined with flashing cameras and murmured speculation. Emily steps out beside Daniel, her hand resting lightly on his arm just as she was taught. The dress she wears fits perfectly, but it still feels like armor. Inside, crystal chandeliers scatter light across hundreds of faces. Power gathers in rooms like this. Money, influence, judgment. Daniel introduces her again and again. His wife, Emily Wright. She smiles. She listens. She remembers names. Then she feels it. The shift. Across the room stands Margaret Hale, a senior board member, known for her sharp tongue and colder loyalty. Her gaze fixes on Emily, slow and deliberate, before she approaches with a practiced smile. "Emily," Margaret says warmly, "you are quite the mystery." Emily inclines her head. "I am happy to meet you." Margaret's smile sharpens. "Tell me, what line of work were you in before marrying Daniel?" The circle around them quiets, subtle, intentional. Emily feels every eye turn toward her. "I was working wherever I was needed," she answers calmly. Margaret grates softly. "How refreshing. Most women in this room have very specific pedigrees." Daniel does not interrupt. He watches. "And your education?" Margaret presses. Emily breathes once, steady. "I did not attend an Ivy League school," she says. "But I learned to work hard, to listen carefully, and to show up prepared. Those skills have served me well." A pause. Margaret studies her, then nods slightly. "Indeed." She moves on, leaving a trail of whispers behind her. Emily exhales quietly. Later, during dinner, a server drops a tray near the head table. Glass shatters. A ripple of discomfort spreads. Without thinking, Emily stands and helps the startled server collect the pieces, shielding his hands with a napkin, murmuring reassurance. For a moment, the room freezes. Then conversation resumes, softer this time. Daniel watches her sit back down, composed, unembarrassed, unapologetic. After dinner, the speeches begin. A microphone squeals. Applause swells. Daniel is called to the stage. As he speaks about growth and vision, Emily stands slightly behind him, just out of the spotlight. She notices Margaret whispering to another board member, eyes flicking toward Emily again. The test is not over. When Daniel finishes, Margaret steps forward unexpectedly and gestures toward Emily. "And, of course," she says smoothly, "we must acknowledge the woman who appeared so suddenly in Daniel's life, his wife." The room stills. "Emily," Margaret continues, "would you like to say a few words?" Emily's heart pounds. This was not on the schedule. She looks at Daniel. For a fraction of a second, something unguarded passes between them. Emily steps forward. She does not take the microphone. "I will be brief," she says clearly. "I know I am new to many of you. I know I did not arrive with expectations or status. But I care deeply about the man standing beside me and about the responsibility he carries." She pauses. "I may not belong to this world by tradition, but I respect it, and I respect the people who built it." Silence, then applause. Polite at first, then genuine. Margaret inclines her head, expression unreadable. On the drive home, the city lights blur past the windows. "You could have declined," Daniel says quietly. "I could not," Emily replies. "Not if I wanted to stand beside you honestly." Daniel nods. "You passed," he says. Emily looks out the window, unaware that something far more dangerous than a test has just been crossed. She did not just survive the room, she earned it. The house feels different after the gala. Not louder, not warmer, just quieter, in a way Emily cannot explain. The staff moves with the same efficiency. The halls remain spotless, but something unseen has shifted. The performance is no longer limited to public rooms. Emily notices it in the small things. Daniel no longer checks his phone when she speaks. He waits, he listens. When they walk together now, his pace matches hers without effort, without comment. One evening, a storm rolls in unexpectedly. Rain taps against the tall windows, slow and steady, blurring the city lights into streaks of silver. Emily sits alone in the living room, curled into one corner of the sofa with a book she has not turned a page of in 20 minutes. Daniel enters quietly, loosening his cuffs as he goes. He stops when he sees her. "You are still awake," he says. "So are you," Emily replies. He nods and pours himself a glass of water, then hesitates. "Do you mind if I sit?" She gestures to the opposite end of the sofa. It is a large couch. He almost smiles. They sit in silence for a moment, the storm filling the space between them. "You did not have to help that server," Daniel says finally. "I did not think," Emily replies. "I just acted." "That is what surprised them," he says. "And me." She closes her book. "I'm not trying to impress anyone." "I know," Daniel says. "That is why it works." The words hang there, heavier than praise. Emily shifts slightly. "Why did you really choose this?" she asks. "The contract." "Me." Daniel does not answer right away. He looks toward the window, watching rain slide down the glass in thin lines. "My last engagement ended because it was convenient," he says. "Good on paper, approved by everyone who mattered, except me." Emily listens, careful not to interrupt. He pauses, reaches for his glass, then sets it back down without drinking. "I was very good at winning," he says. "I was not very good at keeping things." "And now?" Emily asks softly. "And now," he says, "I am not so sure." She studies him then. Not the executive, not the man on magazine covers, just a person, tired in a way money does not fix. "I do not belong here," Emily says quietly. Daniel turns to her. "You belong more than most of the people I know." She lets out a breath she did not realize she was holding. "You do not know me that well." "I know you could have used that microphone to flatter people," he says. "You did not. You spoke honestly. You could have stayed quiet when they tested you. You did not." He pauses. "You are not pretending." Neither is he, she realizes. The storm grows louder. Thunder rolls, distant but present. "This does not change the contract," Emily says, grounding herself. "We agreed on boundaries." "Yes," Daniel replies. "We did." Another silence, this one different, charged. "I will not cross them," he adds, "unless you do." Emily meets his gaze. Her heart beats faster, not with fear, but with something dangerously close to hope. "I will not," she says. He nods once, accepting the lie they both hear. Later that night, Emily stands at the window in her room, watching the rain slow to a drizzle. She touches the edge of the contract folder resting on the desk, unopened but present. For the first time, she understands the real risk, not losing the agreement. But what happens when pretending starts to feel real, and neither of them is ready to admit it? The story breaks 3 days later. Emily learns about it the same way the rest of the world does. Her phone vibrates non-stop on the kitchen counter while she is making coffee she does not intend to drink. One message after another. Unknown numbers, headlines, screenshots. A single word repeats itself across every alert. Contract. She opens the first article with trembling fingers. Sources confirm that Daniel Wright's marriage is not romantic but contractual in nature, it reads. Documents allegedly show a formal agreement outlining financial compensation in exchange for public appearances. Emily feels the room tilt. Her name is there, her face, a photograph taken outside the gala, frozen mid-smile. The contract is real. The protection is gone. By the time Daniel enters the room, already on a call with his legal team, the damage is done. His voice is low, controlled, but she hears the tension beneath it. Yes, he says. I understand. No, not yet. He ends the call and looks at her. You should not be seeing this, he says. But I am, Emily replies. Her voice surprises her with how calm it sounds. Everyone is. The silence between them is sharp now, exposed. The board is calling an emergency meeting, Daniel says. We can contain this. Emily sets her phone down carefully. You mean you can? His jaw tightens. This changes nothing about the agreement. It changes everything, she says. Daniel takes a step toward her, then stops. Give me time. His phone buzzes on the counter. Board members, investors. He does not silence it. Time for what? Emily asks. To decide if I am worth the fallout? That is not fair, he says. Neither is this, she replies, gesturing to the headlines. You promised discretion. I promised protection, Daniel says, and I am trying to maintain it. For yourself, Emily says softly. The words land harder than shouting. Daniel looks away. That is the answer. Later that day, Emily stands alone in the East Wing, packing the few personal items she brought with her. She moves slowly, deliberately, as if rushing would make this hurt more. The house feels colder now, stripped of the fragile warmth she thought she had earned. Mrs. Holloway appears in the doorway, uneasy. Mr. Wright asks that you wait. Emily shakes her head. Please tell him thank you for the opportunity. The word tastes bitter. She leaves the house without cameras, without ceremony. Just a quiet exit through the side gate, the way she entered this arrangement in the first place. That night, the board meeting runs late. Daniel sits at the long table surrounded by faces he has known for years. Faces that do not soften. This was a mistake, Margaret Hale says calmly. You exposed the company to ridicule. I did not, Daniel replies. I stabilized it. With a lie, another board member adds. And now the truth is public. Daniel's phone buzzes. A message from his attorney. Another from public relations. None from Emily. What do you want? Daniel asks finally. Margaret folds her hands. Distance. Issue a statement. Frame her as a misunderstanding. A consultant. Nothing more. Daniel imagines Emily standing in that kitchen, steady even as the ground fell away beneath her. No, he says. The room stills. She did nothing wrong, Daniel continues. This arrangement was my decision. That is not how markets work, Margaret replies. Sacrifices are made. Daniel stands, slowly. So be it, he says, but not her. He leaves the meeting before the vote is taken. Across town, Emily sits on the edge of her old bed, the walls too close, the ceiling too low. Her phone is silent now. The storm has passed, leaving behind only damage. She stares at the contract folder resting on her lap, then closes it without opening it. This was never real, she tells herself, and yet it hurts like it was. What neither of them knows yet is that the lie did not destroy them. The hesitation did. The press conference is called before noon. No carefully worded delay. No damage control statement written by a committee. Just a single notice sent to every major outlet. Daniel Wright will speak in person. Emily does not know this yet. She is at a small neighborhood clinic with her mother, sitting in a plastic chair beneath flickering fluorescent lights, filling out paperwork she understands too well. Her phone buzzes once, then again. She ignores it. Across the city, the conference room fills quickly. Cameras line the walls. Reporters whisper. Board members sit stiffly in the back, their expressions tight with warning. Daniel steps to the podium alone. He does not smile. You are here because you believe my marriage was a lie, he says evenly. You are right about one thing. It began as a contract. A murmur ripples through the room. I created that agreement, he continues. I offered it. I benefited from it. Emily Carter did not deceive anyone. She honored every term I set. Margaret Hale shifts in her seat. The document you have seen was never meant to protect me from the truth, Daniel says. It was meant to protect a company that believed control mattered more than character. He pauses, reaches into the folder in front of him. Then, slowly, deliberately, he tears the contract in half. Gasps echo. Cameras click wildly. There is no agreement, Daniel says, his voice steady. There is no arrangement. There is only my choice. He looks directly into the cameras. I choose her. Silence. Then chaos. Daniel steps away from the podium without taking questions. He does not return to the boardroom. He does not go home. He drives. Emily is walking out of the clinic when she sees his car pull up too fast, too careless for a man who never breaks patterns. Daniel steps out, eyes searching, finding her immediately. She stops. You should not be here, Emily says quietly. I know, Daniel replies. I should have been sooner. She folds her arms. You made your decision. Yes, he says. I did, and it was the wrong one. Emily waits. She does not move toward him. I was afraid, Daniel continues, not of losing power, of admitting that something real mattered more than control. Her expression does not soften. I tore up the contract, he says, in public. She exhales slowly. That does not undo what happened. No, he agrees, but it tells the truth. He takes a breath. I am stepping down from the board vote. I will lose investors. I may lose the company I built. I have already given up my voting majority. By Monday, I will no longer sign final decisions. My name will be removed from the next earnings call. Emily studies him, searching for calculation. There is none. Why? She asks. Because if I ask you to stay, Daniel says, it cannot be because you owe me anything. A long moment passes. I am not asking you to come back as my wife, he says. I am asking you to stay because you choose to. Emily looks at the clinic door, at her mother inside, at the man standing in front of her, stripped of distance and certainty. I cannot promise anything, she says finally. Daniel nods. Neither can I. She turns and walks away. Daniel does not follow. He stands there, letting the choice be hers. For the first time, the contract is gone, and whatever comes next will be real or nothing at all. 3 months pass, not in headlines, not in boardrooms, quietly. Emily returns to work, this time at a small nonprofit clinic across town. She does not leave the life she rebuilt. She lets him step into it. The pay is modest, the hours long, but the work is real. Her mother's treatment continues without interruption. The fear that once sat permanently in her chest slowly loosens its grip. Daniel keeps his distance. He steps down from daily operations, sells part of his stake, and disappears from the pages that once tracked his every move. There are consequences. There always are. But for the first time, his choices belong to him alone. They speak occasionally, short messages. No expectations, no promises. Then one evening, Emily receives a handwritten note. No logo, no signature block, just an address and a time. She hesitates, then goes. The place is small, a converted art gallery with exposed brick walls and warm light spilling onto the sidewalk. Inside, there are no cameras, no press, just a few people she recognizes from the clinic. Her mother sits near the front, smiling softly. Daniel stands at the center of the room. He does not wear a suit. I did not invite you here to surprise you, he says when Emily approaches. I invited you because I wanted to be honest. She waits. I spent my life believing leadership meant control, Daniel continues, that love was a liability, that choosing someone meant losing leverage. He looks at her, steady and open. You showed me that real partnership does not ask for permission. It shows up, it protects, it listens. Emily feels her throat tighten. I am not offering you a contract, Daniel says. I am not offering you security tied to my name or my money. He reaches into his pocket and takes out a simple ring. I am offering you a choice. The room holds its breath. I want to build a life with you, he says. Not because I need an image, but because I want the truth. Emily looks around. at her mother, at the quiet room, at the man who once spoke in clauses and conditions, now standing without any of them. She thinks of the wrong door that led her here, of the contract that tried to define her worth, of the moment she walked away with nothing but her dignity. She does not answer right away. Then she nods. "We try," she says, slowly. The word lands softly, then everything else follows. They do not rush. There is no spectacle, just relief, just joy. Months later, they marry in the same small space, surrounded by people who know their story, not the headlines. Emily wears a dress she chose herself. Daniel waits, not in front of a crowd, but beside her. There is no contract. There is no performance, only a promise made freely. Sometimes love begins as a transaction, but the ones that last are chosen again, without terms, without fear. And this time, it is real.